Okay, so before we get started, I just want to let you guys know the audio was messed up, so I'm just going to try to voice over this whole thing, and yeah, just keep in mind if my mouth doesn't match up with the talking, that's why. So yeah, we'll try to fix the audio problem for future videos, but for now, this is the best we can do. Also, keep in mind, I was extremely tired when I made this video, so, yeah, if I looked a little confused or anything like that, yeah, that's why. So welcome back to another video. If you haven't seen the previous one, the one that just came out before this, please go watch that one, as safety is very important. We don't want anyone getting hurt. So you saw the title of the video. I'm going to be showing you guys the basics for wielding a katana with two hands, not one. I will also be showing some kendo. I personally don't like kendo, and what I will be focusing on would be a more practical use of a katana, since kendo is more for show and for tournaments and stuff like that. Most of what I show will be applicable with kendo, but I'll be going into some of the problems I have with the art of Japanese fencing. Anyway, with the lengthy intro out of the way, let's begin. First, let's explain what a katana is, okay? Katana is a sword traditionally wielded by the samurai. It was also traditionally worn with two other blades, the wakizashi and the tanto, but we aren't here about those. Now let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the blade. Now, as you can see, the katana is a long weapon with a curved blade, okay? The handle has room for two hands, and it's predominantly used for slashing rather than thrusting attacks. One advantage you would have with such a blade is the length, okay? In a more open environment, such as the room I am in, the length of a katana would allow you to hit opponents from a further distance, whereas something like a short sword or a broadsword or something like that, they'd have to come in close, whereas you'd already be within range of striking them. Another advantage the katana has is the extended handle. Okay, it's long enough for two hands, which allows it to be more controlled. It has a lot better control, can be a lot more precise and faster, which is a problem that, say, a fencing foil would have. Since fencing foils have only room for one hand on the handle, they can be a lot harder to control. Also, the incredibly sharp blade of a real katana means that you don't have to put a lot of force behind your swing to do a lot of damage, okay? Basically, when it comes to swords like the katana, you let the blade do the work, not your muscles. Now let's get into some aspects of the katana that I would find disadvantageous, okay? First off, the length in tight hallways would prove to be more of a hindrance, since tight hallways, I wouldn't have a lot of room to swing the blade, okay? Another disadvantage is perhaps the one edge, alright, because the katana only has one edge to it, alright? Having no back edge means if I want to cut my opponent after a swing, I'd have to turn the blade around. Okay, that could take up some time. Whereas a double-edged weapon, I could just swing right back. One final disadvantage would be more the thrusting aspect. Okay, because the curved blade of a katana, you'd have to do more of an upwards movement to thrust, okay? Whereas with a straight-edged sword, you could just do a straight thrust to get an effective stab. One thing I should note really quickly before we move on, do not hit with the side of a katana. Always hit with the edge. If you hit with the side, it will break like glass, okay? So do not hit or block with the side of the blade. Always the edge. Yeah, Demon Slayer got that one right. Alright, so now that we're beyond the advantages and disadvantages, let's talk about the actual wielding of the katana, at least the basics. As you can see, the katana is on my left side with the blade facing upwards, okay? The katana is not worn with the blade facing downwards, it is upwards. When the katana is this way, it gives you more of a downward slash when you draw it. Such a slash would be good because it is also aided by gravity, and so basically your own power plus the power of gravity is in your swing. So, yeah. Now for drawing the katana. If you look closely at my hands, you see my left hand is on the sheath, with my thumb more pushing against the handguard, or tsuba. My right hand would be all the way up on the other side of the sheath, okay? And when I'm ready to draw, I push with my thumb, my left thumb, and push the blade out. Then I draw the sword, and then I move my left hand to the very bottom of the handle, alright? Right hand at the very top, left hand at the very bottom. Before we move on, I would like to draw attention to that. I see a lot of people putting both their hands at the bottom, like it's a baseball bat, but that is not how you wield it, okay? A katana is not a blunt force weapon, meaning it does not rely on the weight or on brute force alone to destroy its target, okay? It relies on the sharpness of the edge and the speed. It is a speed and precision weapon. So, right hand at the top, left hand at the bottom. That is how it is supposed to be wielded. Now let's get into stances and ready positions after you draw your katana. In traditional kendo, you have an upright stance with your sword far out in front of you. Basically, your arms are outstretched, and basically, that's how you do it in kendo. But that's not how I like to wield it. Having your arms all the way forward like that, the way you would in kendo, means you have to draw back in order to strike your opponent. Alright, and that could leave you open to their attack, alright? It's not something I would prefer in any kind of real sword fight. Alright, you do not want to make yourself open. The only way to effectively strike your opponent without drawing the sword back would be to walk forward. So yeah, and if you draw your sword back, I could easily just walk forward and strike you. To be honest, I just don't think that looks like good sword fighting. Okay, I just don't think that looks very good, and yeah. That's one of the reasons I do not like kendo. I personally prefer the position you see me using in front of you. It has the sword more drawn back closer, and thus it would give you the same defensive capabilities that you would with a kendo stance, because with kendo you can easily move the blade to defend, but for offense, you'd have to draw the blade back, which could leave you open to their attack if they are faster. With my stance, you're more ready to both defend and attack. You're already partially drawn back, ready to strike. So that's why I prefer my stance to a more kendo-ready stance. Another stance I've seen, but don't really use myself, is this one. Alright, where the sword is back more towards your head. That comes with its own problems. It does leave basically your entire body open, but you are drawn back, ready to strike. And if you are fast enough, you can you can defend yourself easily with this. However, if your opponent is faster than you are, I would not recommend this stance, okay? Plus, any strikes would be aided by gravity. This stance is basically the same thing, only the blade is more towards the ground. You're still ready to strike, but if you're slower than your opponent, then do not rely on that stance, alright? But I have seen those. Those are okay otherwise if you are fast enough to defend yourself. But this stance is definitely my best, or my favorite. Before we move into defense, we should talk about footwork. Basically, right foot in front, left foot in back, and just don't put yourself in more of a super sturdy stance. You're going to want to keep yourself more high up, okay? Be ready to move sort of light on your feet, because that would give you more mobility and would make evasion and stuff easier. But don't be so mobile that you get pushed over from the slightest breeze, okay? Now let's talk about defense, okay? If anything should come for your head or for your neck, basically in a high area, right? You're going to want to use more of a high deflect, okay? As you can see, I move to the side, alright, I move to the side and block, alright, raising the blade up over my head, but at more of an angle. Now the reason I do a more deflect rather than a straight block is so that any straight down attacks would slide down the blade, okay? Do not do a straight block. Do a deflect, right? Make sure it is angled so as to allow it to glide off the blade. And of course, you can do this for both sides. Really, it only depends on where their attack comes from. If they attack with more of a thrusting motion to the body, okay, then you use a parry, okay? As you can see, you basically push their weapon away from you. And you always want to keep your blade slightly angled when you do this, so that you're pushing with the very edge, not with the side of the blade, okay? Also, notice my feet. Notice how I move out of the way. I move away from their weapon. Now, if they were to try and strike at your sides, it would be best to block these. Now, this looks similar to the high deflect we did earlier, but there is no deflection here. This is more of a block. It's meant to stop their blade completely. And now, finally, a low block. Basically, that's it. Nothing really fancy here. No deflections or anything like that. Really simple. Just make sure you're moving away from their weapon as you block. Simply put, there's two ways to wield a katana for offense. You swing and you stab. Alright? The difference is in what direction you swing from. Alright? But basically, it's all the same. Okay, so the reason we have one hand at the very top and one hand at the very bottom is because the top hand, that is the hand that supplies the power, okay? You don't need a lot of power to swing a sword effectively if it's got a sharp edge, but you will need power to swing it, okay? The bottom hand is for more steering, alright? To give it a precision, to guide it, to guide the edge where you want it to go. That's why hand positions are important. Let's start with a strike from the head, alright? So you're coming down at them, alright? Now as you can see, I moved in and slashed downward. You're going to want to avoid drawing back really far, because that can leave you really open, okay? Because this ain't an anime, okay? They aren't just going to wait for you to power up. Another thing I would not recommend is going straight down, okay? Because then you have to bring the blade to either side in order to draw it back, right? And if you try to draw it straight back up, that wouldn't be as effective, but if you bring it to the sides, you can easily turn it and slash again and get a second upward slash, okay? So yeah, as you're about to see, going straight down can be disadvantageous if you want to get a second strike in. So let's go into sideways strikes, okay? Nothing too special about them, it's just, strikes to the side. And then you can get in some thrusts, as you can see. Kind of. Not really. I really should have moved back some, but, So we've just about covered all the basics, so I'm going to show you guys how to sheath it. Now I'll do a close-up of this, but what you're going to want to do is have the sheath ready, okay? Have your thumb and pointer finger on the sides of the sheath, alright? And you're going to want to place the back of the blade against it, the non-sharp side, and use the sides of your finger and thumb to guide the blade in. And once you get the tip in, you can sheath it. This way, you will not get cut, alright? Now, here is a close-up, okay? As you can see, fingers on the sides, back of the katana blade, just guiding it in. And there you go. It's sheathed. Before we conclude this, I would like to remind you all that this is not for any sort of mastery. This is basically the basics of wielding a katana. I will also be taking requests to do other weapons for future videos. These videos won't be coming out very often, but I do have many plans for them. Yeah, that's, for now, that's all I can remember, so I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe to be notified of future videos, whether from this series or from any other I make. And with that, my friends, for now, sayonara.